Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. It's been 9 days since Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused Indian government of being involved in the murder of a Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar on Canadian soil. Since then, Trudeau and Canada have failed to provide any evidence to support the claim. Now, given the allegations were made so publicly, the expectation is that they'll also validate it publicly as well. While some statements from US authorities may seem to back Trudeau, there are no global powers that are taking sides and they are unlikely to. But what this episode has done is shine a light on the separatist Khalistani movement in Canada and build pressure on these groups who are now in the public eye. So let me show you exactly what do I mean. A rally was conducted by pro-Khalistani protesters outside the Indian consulate in Vancouver and some other places. This was a rally that was being watched very keenly. Remember, this was called by Sikhs for Justice and its chief Pannu, who have been leading in hate speech against Indian Hindus in Canada, asking them to leave and painting a target on the back of Indian diplomats as well. So this is an event that was being watched because it was coming after Justin Trudeau's allegations against India, and a lot of the Khalistani sentiment and activity in Canada is now under a close watch. Now, these protesters, remember, have been demanding, in a toned-down version of their demands, that Indian missions in Canada be shut down. And questions have been rising on the Trudeau government on how and why they allow these actions and speech against India on its soil. Meanwhile, we are also learning that Sikh groups are actually unhappy with the ongoing tension between India and Canada. They're distancing themselves from the Khalistanis. They feel that they are losing their respect around the world because of the action of a few, which are these Khalistani sympathizers, secessionists and terrorists. They are losing respect due to the radical approach that has been taken by some groups and the fact that the leadership has been taken over in some cases by people who are involved in abuse. This is a major concern for the peace-loving Sikh community in Canada and globally. They also believe that Khalistani groups have no association with Guru Granth Sahib. Sikhs there say that never have they seen these Khalistani groups actually reciting from the Guru Granth Sahib. They are ashamed that Khalistani groups are disrespecting the Tiranga. This goes on at all of these Khalistani separatist marches, rallies, etc. that are called for outside of India. We have seen, of course, a Tiranga being pulled off by one of those Khalistanis at the London mission of the Indian government. They also claim that the image of the Sikhs around the world is being tarnished by these pro-Khalistani groups because remember, in a lot of these localities where they are in large in number, they are known for bullying, they are known for gang-type activities, and in fact, Hardeep Singh Nijjar himself is suspected to have been killed in gang action, a murder whose blame Canadian President Justin Trudeau has now landed on us. So has Justin Trudeau landed himself in a soup where even its traditional brother partner USA cannot help beyond a point? Well, I spoke to Canadian foreign affairs expert Michael Bosicue, who certainly seems to feel so. He writes on CNN.com that it is hard to imagine any world leader wanting to share the foreign policy swarm in which the beleaguered Canadian Prime Minister currently finds himself. I spoke to Michael about this and more in an exclusive conversation. Here's more. Michael Bosicue, thanks a lot for speaking to CNN News 18. You're a global affairs expert from Canada and also a senior fellow at the Atlanta Council. I want to begin by asking you, you've of course written for CNN.com. Would you say that it is fair to say that Justin Trudeau made a miscalculation in the manner in which he publicly accused India of Nijjar's killing, and that it could have a lot to do with his domestic situation, which is of, lowering popularity ratings, interference of China being discussed quite a bit there, and also poor economic, concerns. Do you think that this was both a miscalculation and also purely as a distraction for the domestic concerns?
Yeah, a bit of both. But on the first point, a miscalculation, I think a lot of us feel that the Trudeau government acted very prematurely, that it was almost amateur hour at the Prime Minister's office. Why go public with these very, very serious allegations if the investigation isn't concluded? Secondly, what also is a bit of a head scratcher is why, for heaven's sake, why expel a senior Indian diplomat, hence escalating this situation quite a bit? number one, when the investigation isn't completed, but number two, the Ukrainian community in Canada, which is quite sizable, has also been asking the Trudeau government to expel Russian diplomats since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Not one has been expelled since the start of the war of last year. Meanwhile, in Europe, several hundred have been expelled. So I don't know if we can call that a double standard, but it is a bit of a head scratcher. I think what has happened here, it is a debacle, fits into a pattern of the Trudeau government fumbling quite a bit, not only on foreign files, but also domestic ones. I think a lot of us are wondering why on earth they acted when they did, when they arrested Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou in Vancouver on a U.S. warrant, where that could have been handled elsewhere. And in return, Canada paid a very, very heavy price in terms of commercial relations, but also we had some Canadians falsely detained in China. Trudeau is not polling well right now. If an election were held today, he probably wouldn't be prime minister. So that has to do with a lot of the domestic issues, housing crisis, cost of living crisis, and also ethics scandals. He has racked quite a few up in his time. And also on the foreign front, just to wrap up, we haven't been doing well. We've cut assistance to many, many countries. We don't have the so-called megaphone that we once used to. And also, not long ago, Canada lost a very expensive and long bid to get one of those 2 rotating seats on the UN Security Council. So we were a middle power. I hope we stay that way, but it's not looking good right now.
You also mentioned that not only is this not a fight that Canada would like to pick with India, a growing power economically and the world's most populous country and the world's most populous democracy, but it's also come at a bad time. Could you elaborate on that? Why do you think it is both bad fight and bad timing?
Sure. On many fronts, it's bad timing because on one, Canada just unveiled a Indo-Pacific strategy, and India had a whole section in there. And part of the thrust of that strategy was to really jumpstart, accelerate our relations with India, because everyone realizes the potential, world's most populous nation, that sort of thing. The other thing that is happening, of course, is given India's ascendancy, Canada doesn't want to be left out of that. Of course, we did have pretty good commercial ties, students, especially tourism. But when all of these other countries are trying to expand their relationship with India, Canada could get left behind in the dust. So that's not great. I should mention this as well. We have to acknowledge that the investigation in terms of Canada is still ongoing, so we can't jump to conclusions. And I should also say that India, as I said, is on its ascendancy, but that along with that, it has to, of course, act as a responsible state and a responsible country. So God forbid that the Modi government did indeed order this assassination. That would be very, very grave. And I should mention that it would affect not only relationships with Canada, but with other major partners. So we hope that wasn't the case here.
Speaking of other major political powers, you also seem to suggest that Justin Trudeau has landed himself in a security swamp that no other big leader in the world would like to join him in. What do you make of how US and other countries could react? Is this a fight that Justin Trudeau has picked where the other powers, especially US, will not be willing to take sides?
Sure. Yeah, well, what I was speaking about is Canada is not punching above its weight the way it used to. We've been left out of, some recent major security deals, alliances, and Canada is not only our biggest trading partner, but our, of course, closest neighbor. We have the longest undefended border in the world. And usually both countries move in lockstep with each other. This is a case where that doesn't seem to be happening. So Canada, and especially Mr. Trudeau, may be feeling a little bit left out in the cold right now. And also, I don't think the UK or Australia really came to back him up. I did notice that, I believe it was yesterday, the US ambassador to Ottawa did come out and say that intelligence was shared. I think this was pressure on the US, or maybe they felt a little bit they needed to come to Canada's aid, throw Mr. Trudeau a bit of a lifeline to say that, yes, we were involved in the decision. But we all saw the images of Prime Minister Modi and President Biden in Delhi and elsewhere, and it's a very close relationship. I think when push comes to shove, the U.S. will, at the end of the day, prioritize its evolving relationship with India over Canada. That's just the reality of geopolitics that we have today.
In your sense, what is the feeling in Washington about Trudeau's public allegation? Did it catch the US administration also by surprise, even if they were sharing some intelligence behind the scenes? And in that sense, was it political immaturity to do it in the manner that he did?
Well, I have a feeling that Mr. Biden and Mr. Trudeau did discuss this at the G20 summit in Delhi, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Biden urged caution on the part of Mr. Trudeau to move forward with this. But, I think, again, it's so many Canadians asking this, including our national newspaper, the Globe and Mail, is that Canadians deserve answers. You don't come out so publicly with these allegations and then say, oh, well, the investigation is still ongoing. And in the meantime, as everyone well knows by now, the relationship is deteriorating. It's sinking very, very fast. And of course, that has economic ramifications. I don't think India will feel it as much as Canada will. And what really makes me feel bad, to be honest with you, is these students who may not be able to come to Canada for the next while. That's very, very unfortunate. And it's also going to hurt Canadian educational institutions at a time when they need foreign students. So, look, at the end of the day, this is not a kind of burning foreign affairs file, which Mr. Trudeau would like on his desk. And one more point, I think there may be casualties. I mean, maybe Melanie Joly, the foreign affairs minister, who is handling this, it's in her department. Who knows? Maybe she will be a casualty of this, because that often happens in these crises. You don't perhaps take blame for yourself as a leader, but you get rid of others who have maybe done something wrong or didn't pay attention. That wouldn't be out of line of Mr. Trudeau's playbook.
Just overall, your sense on Indo-Canadian relationship. This is, by many accounts and by many experts' account, the worst that we have seen. Even though Khalistani separatism and movements based in Canada have been a sore point between India and Canada for 40 years now. Do you see this relationship balancing at all, or do you think we'll have to wait for a change of government in Canada to see any improvement, if there was to be?
I think what both capitals need to do is take a breather, take a pause, let things cool down a little bit, perhaps let the investigation take its pace, and then resume. I think the ties are very deep. We all hope this is a diplomatic irritant rather than a crisis. It now appears to be. But the other thing I think that needs to be realized not only in Delhi, but in Beijing and other major capitals is that Canada really does prioritize freedom of expression, number one. But number two is we basically flung open our doors to immigration as a source of population growth because we aren't producing enough at home. And when you do that, people who are not vetted properly are bound to get in, and they're bound to bring their grievances or their campaigns or whatever to our soil. And I think every Canadian is supportive of freedom of expression. However, there is a line when it crosses, defacing monuments or attacking temples, hate speech, hate crimes. I think the Canadian government needs to reassure everyone that the authorities will act quickly on that.
And do you think that will happen now? Because as I said, this has been a sore point with India for quite many decades. They've given a lot of information in the past too. And, recently there's been hate speech against Hindu Indians in Canada. Yeah. There's also been, these posters attacking Indian diplomats. Now, that certainly doesn't fall under freedom of speech or freedom of protest that Justin Trudeau talked about. Right. One, why do you think the Khalistani element controls Justin Trudeau so much that he would almost take the relationship with India to please them, as is the allegation? And secondly, do you believe the Canadian government now needs to act or to be seen to be acting on them?
Well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves or get into Mr. Trudeau's head, but if I could answer it this way, I know that, for example, the Ukrainian community in Canada, which is quite large, has been complaining about hate speech and defamation of monuments and that sort of a thing since Russia's full-scale invasion. And there's a feeling that the authorities have not acted quickly or seriously enough. And I've already mentioned that no Russian diplomats have been expelled. And you can't tell me that they aren't engaging in hate speech or distributing false information. So generally speaking, I think there needs to be more attention to these because we are becoming day by day a more diverse country. We had an incident, by the way, this past summer in Toronto, where two rival sides of the Eritrean community had quite a severe and violent tussle in a park during a festival, and the police had to move in. I think dialogue is very, very important. For example, there has been very successful dialogues here in the United States, in Canada, and elsewhere between the Ukrainian and Jewish communities. This has helped us understand each other. This allows for channels of communications when there are problems. So cooler heads need to prevail at the moment, but I think we will get over this. And the relationship, of course, is very, very important on a number of levels.
Michael, if I could just press on the issue of Justin Trudeau and his allied partners' links with Khalistani movement in Canada. There is almost a sense that his entire government has been hijacked by these elements, as small as they may be, because he's a minority government and then, lowering in popularity. Do you feel that there is any pressure on this government to kind of de-link themselves from secessionist movements that have often been known to be violent as well?
Again, I don't want to get into the details of it, but generally speaking, the Trudeau government is very vulnerable because it is a more minority government and it relies on the New Democratic Party for support in the House of Commons. So it wouldn't act, for example, very decisively sometimes on certain issues the way it might as a majority government would. So that's a big problem right now. But the other thing I can tell you is when I do listen to Canadian government ministers, they're assuring all of us that the investigation will be conducted fairly and thoroughly. They do assure us that hate speech, hate crimes won't be tolerated. And, look, at the end of the day, there will be an election within the next 2 years, and Canadians will make up their minds whether, they can take the government seriously on these pledges.
Could I ask you just for a parting shot before I let you go? Has this episode dented Justin Trudeau's image more, or has it helped him in any way? As you said, those are very strong words. This almost sounded like amateur hour at the Prime Minister's office.
Oh, it's definitely dented it. The way they just wrote out this information, the way it's already hurt our relationships with India. I think Canada has a bit of a credibility crisis at the moment. And, we are finding out that our relationship with the United States is possibly not as strong as we thought it would, that they didn't really come to full support of Canada prioritizing their relationships with bigger countries over ours. I have to tell you, that is a very, very new chapter for any Canadian to swallow. This is not the Trump administration. This is the Biden administration we're talking about. So if anyone would have come to our aid, it would have been them. So we'll see. But again, if you take into account all of the other debacles that are happening outside of Canada's borders and domestically, he's not in very good shape. This is damaging material to him. I think they have to act very quickly to limit that damage any further.
All right. Michael Bosicchio, thanks a lot for speaking to CNN News 18.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, even as this diplomatic face-off with Canada continues, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has made certain statements that, of course, apply to this situation. He's not named Canada or any other country, but I'm just pointing out to a couple of his statements that are very crucial as far as the ongoing context is concerned. So he has said at his UNGA speech that politics cannot dictate the response to terror. And this is the fundamental issue that India has raised with Canada too. In fact, India upped the ante in the MEA response last week by calling Canada a safe haven for terrorists. Rule breakers must not be allowed to subjugate rule makers, that there shouldn't be a premium attached to those who continue to break the rules versus those who are actually following the rules. Must respect territorial integrity. This is, of course, a red line for India, and India continues to show Western powers that this is non-negotiable. Territorial integrity cannot be cherry-picked is also a statement made by S. Jaishankar. Let's listen to a few excerpts.
Similarly, respect for territorial integrity and non-interference in internal affairs cannot be exercises in cherry picking. When reality departs from the rhetoric, we must have the courage to call it out. Without genuine solidarity, there can never be real trust. In our deliberations, we often advocate the promotion of a rules-based order. From time to time, respect for the UN Charter is also invoked. But for all the talk, it is still a few nations who shape the agenda and seek to define the norms. This cannot go on indefinitely, nor will it go unchallenged.
Let's also cut across to Ahmedabad, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed a short while ago. He's going to be taking part in a Nari Shakti event in his home state. And these are visuals now coming in of Narendra Modi being greeted by the public and of course supporters of the BJP and more on the streets of Ahmedabad. So it has effectively turned into a roadshow. This happens quite a bit when he visits his home state of Gujarat. And now he'll be proceeding to the venue where the Prime Minister is supposed to take part in an event celebrating Nari Shakti, which is of course timely because the BJP-led Narendra Modi-led government has just in the special session gone by of the new parliament managed to pass the Women's Reservation Bill. The Prime Minister, while also campaigning in a couple of poll-bound states, has been talking about how this is a big achievement for their government to be able to pass this bill, which is going to be implemented in some time to come. But he has questioned the intentions of the opposition while they're questioning this bill and criticizing that this is not getting implemented anytime soon. Let me also go across to my colleague Payal Mehta, who's joining us. Payal, tell us more about the Prime Minister's program in Ahmedabad.
Well, the Prime Minister, in fact, is getting a rousing welcome when he's gone home. This is homecoming for the Prime Minister at the back of that historic legislation which saw the light of the day in Parliament. It was passed unanimously of sorts in both houses as well. So obviously it's a happy homecoming for the Prime Minister. He's going to be there on a 2-day visit, starting today. Huge welcome organized for him. It's pretty likely that in a bit from now that he will be addressing the crowd which is also gathered over there, because remember this is extremely important given the fact that the government has spoken about the role of women in the coming days, years, weeks and months. And that is something that the Prime Minister has highlighted. So obviously whenever he went in, even yesterday when he was in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, over there also got a rousing welcome. Shivani, the visuals were there for to see. There were more than 5 lakh people at the rally where he was addressing in Bhopal as well. So obviously a huge homecoming for the Prime Minister at the back of this massive decision. And like I just heard you speaking just a short while ago, where he said that it has shown, the government has shown a lot of political will to bring to this decision, which has not seen the light of the day so far.
Right. So the Prime Minister is in Gujarat for a couple of days, during which he is going to be, of course, marking the celebrations of 20 years of the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit. This is, of course, going to be very close to his heart, isn't it, Payal? Because as the Chief Minister, he helmed the Vibrant Gujarat Summits.
Yes, it's extremely close to his heart. That is something which he came up with. And, after that, you've seen a series of states also following up this Vibrant Business Summit, including some opposition ruled states. But this is extremely close to his heart. And he continued his association even after he became the Prime Minister. So obviously, that's something which is very, very important to watch out for. Like I said, that there's nothing which is... which stops Narendra Modi from staying connected with his home state, and this being Gujarat, this being a special occasion. And you can see the visuals on the screen of the number of people who have gathered there to welcome the Prime Minister at the airport as well. It's going to be quite a rousing welcome there. But yes, a lot of work in store. You have the elections coming up in the next 2 months. There you see on the screens Bhupendra Patel, a very, very low-profile Gujarat Chief Minister by Narendra Modi's right side and left side, and on the right side is C.R. Patil, the man who actually staged that massive victory for the BJP in Gujarat, getting them over 150 seats in the last assembly election. Something that they had never achieved, something that most people believe they would not be able to achieve. But it was the team of Narendra Modi and C.R. Patil that you actually saw in action. And even then, the Prime Minister held a massive roadshow on the final day of the campaigning in Ahmedabad as well.
Right. So this is a visit, as I said, during which the Prime Minister will take part in the celebration of 20 years of the Vibrant Gujarat Summit. There are some foundation stone laying projects worth crores of rupees. That's always something that the Prime Minister helms when he makes these visits. He is also to participate, apart from this program of Vibrant Gujarat Summit, a program where he will dedicate projects worth 5,200 crore rupees in Gujarat. Let me also go across to my colleague Payal for more as far as the Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit is concerned. You know, Ahmedabad is one of those cities, Payal, as you would know, is very comfortable with hosting a lot of large events. It has great infrastructure and of course the Narendra Modi Stadium, which is the biggest in the world now. And you know, it is a theme of the Prime Minister's working style to build these large infrastructure to be able to host these summits. The Bharat Mandapam in Delhi, for example, is the recent example where he was at an event earlier today.
Yes, you know, infrastructure and building world-class infrastructure is something which is going to be state-of-the-art, is something which Narendra Modi has specialized in, and Bharat Mandapam is one example. And I remember after Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister in 2014, the first Vibrant Gujarat Summit was held in 2015 Mahatma Mandir, which is in Gandhinagar as well. So obviously from that time onwards, we've seen a lot of infrastructure come to the fore. Recently also the Dwarka facility was also inaugurated by the Prime Minister, that was dedicated to the country. So obviously, you know, if you talk about people being given governance, and one of the key aspects of governance is definitely infrastructure. So huge trust as far as that is concerned. And it's the Gujarat unit is a well-oiled machinery, you know, Shivani. That's the country that has probably that's the state that has seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi up close and personal for a very, very long time as a Chief Minister of the state first, and now as the Prime Minister as well. And they take a huge pride in this. This Gujarati Asmita, Gujarati pride is something which a lot of Gujaratis take a lot of pride in. And with the kind of trade and other engagement that you see between countries like the US and the UK, especially with the Patel community and their travel and their business interests as well, so that makes Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar in particular a huge destination to watch out for. So it's a very important, like I said, the celebrations have begun today. Why not? Because this is the government which has shown the political will to bring in the bill, and everywhere you can see posters congratulating the Prime Minister for the women's reservation bill, the Matri Shakti Vandan bill that is being called.
Yes, lots of women, but that's always the case. But it's especially poignant now because the BJP, of course, is going across the country. The Prime Minister himself is taking that message across the country about the success of the women's reservation bill passing and why it is so key, not just for this government, but just generally for India. As far as his other events are concerned, I mentioned he's going to be inaugurating or at least laying the foundation stone of some of the other events, and most of them focus on school infrastructure across Gujarat. So that's going to be the other focus tomorrow. But we'll slip into a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you more from Ahmedabad and otherwise.
Carried out multiple yatras. We've also seen Home Minister Amit Shah and the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh address these yatras over the last few days itself. In one such yatra, we saw the Home Minister refer to the Sanatan Dharm controversy that was playing out down south. Remember, this is the controversy where a DMK leader made statements about the Sanatan Dharm. That was looked at as particularly interesting by experts, as an indication almost of what the BJP poll plan could look like in just a few months from now. Now, my colleague Arun with us to bring us more context. Arun, you joined us earlier in the day when the Prime Minister was giving speeches in Madhya Pradesh. Now he's obviously in Jaipur, two election-bound states. Can you bring our audiences more context about what lies in store here in Jaipur?
Well, see, Prime Minister Modi has a very jam-packed schedule today. Firstly, he started his day with a rally in Madhya Pradesh. Then he has reached Rajasthan, and after concluding his program in Rajasthan, remember, he'll be reaching to Delhi and then participate in another program of Deen Dayal Upadhyay, the statue. So now, as we speak, Prime Minister Modi is in Jaipur, and remember that today is the culmination day of the Bharatiya Janata Party's Parivartan Yatra in Rajasthan, and of course Prime Minister Modi has been welcomed by women there, and the state BJP has planned this visit of Prime Minister Modi in a way that all the work related to Prime Minister's rally, stage work, etc. Would be done by all women workers of Bharatiya Janata Party. And in fact, when Prime Minister Modi is arriving there, then on the both sides of the road, you'll have women worker welcoming Prime Minister Modi, thanking Prime Minister Modi for this women's reservation bill, which has come to the fore and in fact passed by the Parliament's both houses, and therefore we are seeing that Prime Minister Modi is getting that welcome from the people of Rajasthan. He will of course be engaging with the audiences there. Prime Minister Modi will make sure that whenever he visits poll-bound states, he talk about those issues which are really mattering on the ground. And BJP has been actually targeting Congress party on 3 issues. One, of course, is women's safety. Second is the appeasement politics of the Congress party, and third is corruption. So these are the issues which BJP highlighted vis-a-vis Rajasthan is concerned in past couple of months.
Tell our audiences, Arun, we know that at least in the state of Rajasthan, anti-incumbency will work in the BJP's favour. But at the same time, the BJP, it seems, has had a difficult few months when it comes to their state unit. It seems, at least according to experts, that there are multiple claimants when it comes to the Chief Minister's position. Obviously, there's the former Chief Minister Vasundhara Raje, but there are also reports claiming that Satish Poonia, Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, CP Joshi, all are attempting to lay claim to that position. Can you bring us more context?
Well, see, as of now, BJP has made it very clear to all those leaders whom you've just named that the election will be fought under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. So there will not be any declaration of the chief ministerial candidate from the BJP's side, and that is, of course, to keep those objections under the wraps, because there are, of course, various leaders who have aspirations. You have Vasundhara Raje, who is the former chief minister of Rajasthan and a very strong leader, and therefore you have other leaders as well, like Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, CP Joshi, Rajendra Rathod. So without taking any risk, BJP is giving clear indication that they will fight this election under the leadership and on the face of Prime Minister Modi. And once, if they form the government, then they will decide who's going to be leading the Bharatiya Janata Party there in the state. And that is perhaps the reason why that message, in fact, has been given to all state leaders that we have to fight this election collectively. So there shouldn't be any, individual campaigning or etc. And that was the reason why, if you see that Parivartan Yatra, which happened in Rajasthan, that was not led by one person. There were 4 yatras, which was led by 4 different leaders.
Arun, thank you for those details. We'll continue to check back in with my colleague. As you can see, the Prime Minister in Jaipur. It's time for a short break. On the other side, in just a few minutes, more of the country's top stories. This is the Breaking News Show. The Prime Minister, as you can see on the visuals in front of us, in Jaipur. A little while earlier, we brought you visuals of the Prime Minister in a rally in Madhya Pradesh. Both Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan are due for elections. You'll remember this year, in just a few months from now. In Rajasthan, remember, the Prime Minister is there right now to address audiences. He'll be addressing crowds in just a little while from now. But in Rajasthan, his visit is of particular importance because, remember, the BJP in Rajasthan has seen some disquiet within its state unit with various poles of leadership. Former Chief Minister Vasundhara Raje choosing not to attend rallies in multiple areas, seen as a seeming sign of her dissatisfaction with decisions being made by the central BJP leadership. So that disquiet very much remains. Remember, the Rajasthan state is currently ruled by the
Thanks a lot for staying with us. These are live visuals coming in from Ahmedabad, where the Prime Minister is all set to take part in a Nari Shakti event, celebrating, of course, not just the power of women, but also the recent passing of the 33% reservation for women politicians and legislatures in Indian legislatures, both at the Lok Sabha level, and of course it will be implemented when it is at the state level as well. The Prime Minister already in many of his engagements has talked about how the BJP was the only party with a real will to bring this in, even though Congress governments in the past have tried to. But he has attacked the opposition for trying to bring this bill down, because remember, the Congress is still maintaining that this is a jumla of sorts. The government doesn't have the intention to implement the reservation, which could only kick in by 2029 and certainly not ahead of 2024. So that's the big battle that has been taking place as far as the women's reservation bill is concerned, or the act is concerned now. Other than that, of course, this is election season. The Prime Minister has already been touring and leading the BJP campaign in many of the poll-bound states of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and he will continue to do so, where he is launching very scathing attacks on the opposition. Yesterday, for example, he did say a bankrupt Congress has been taken over by urban Naxals, an attack he has made in the past as well. My colleague Payal Mehta is also joining us. Payal has been tracking the Prime Minister's recent events. Payal, just for the benefit of our viewers, take us through what the Prime Minister's message has been, not just when he speaks online, but also in his events since the passing of the women reservation bill. What has been his key message to the public on that?
Well, the key message, Shivani, begins from the naming of the bill itself. What is it called? It's called Nari Shakti. It basically talks about the empowerment of women, talks about the contribution of women, and that's the reason the naming itself is very, very significant. Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam is the name, is the technical name of the bill. So that's the whole intent as well. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has time and again said that this is a historic occasion. This is a time to actually celebrate Amrit Kal, and what better than to empower the women who are said to be the Adi Abadi, or the equal half as well. So it's just been a lot of lip service that has happened so far, but not much has been done. So obviously the Prime Minister said that this is a government which has the political will to actually bring a legislation like this, and this actually marked the moving of from the old parliament to the new parliament as well. So obviously it's something which is historic. It's going to have a long term impact as well. There are of course a lot of naysayers who are questioning as to why this has not been done again. Immediately, but there are a lot of technical issues that are involved with it, because you can't be calculating the details or calculating the seats that will be reserved on the basis of the census which happened in 2011. You'll have to actually look at the fresh census. In 2021, we could not have the census because of the COVID hitting us. Obviously, the next possible time that the census can really happen is in 2026 as well. So that's something which they have to really look out for. There has to be a census which has to be done. After the census, obviously, there has to be a delimitation. There has to be an increase in the number of seats as well. That's something which is the technical aspect as far as that is concerned. The impact and the intent is very, very clear. And the BJP is certainly hoping that this is going to reap benefits for them in Hindi heartland, in the Hindi states as well. Madhya Pradesh being one of those Hindi heartland states, very, very powerful, extremely powerful, and BJP's oldest organization. And the women voters are the voters that nobody takes lightly. Shivani, you would have also seen how the women voters actually changed the dynamics of the election as well. They rallied behind Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and at that point in time, their ally Nitish Kumar also, because he had brought in the Sharab Bandi was in place as well. And the fact that the Prime Minister is not let households sleep hungry with the Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana as well. So that's a long sort of, it's been a long sort of issue that has been raised. And earlier also when Sonia Gandhi was being interviewed by our channel, she also back then said that she was most disappointed that her own party leaders did not support her for the passage of the women's reservation bill. But here you are, the women's reservation bill is now a reality. It's been passed by both houses quite unanimously as well. And the Prime Minister obviously receiving the greetings of the women leaders in the state. He's being garlanded for the stupendous effort being made by the government to actually bring in a bill in no time. And it took everybody by surprise, because last Monday, in fact, on the first day of the special session of Parliament, which was on the 18th, a special cabinet meeting was called, and the bill was given was given an approval by the government, and then it was brought into Parliament on the day on which the Parliament moved from the old to the new building. So that's the kind of an effort that the government really made, and that's something which the Prime Minister will continue to celebrate. And why not? Because everybody talks about empowerment. Everybody talks about the fact that women need to be, need to be a lot who can actually come to the fore and contribute much. But what is the biggest way of contributing to the country? It is, of course, to be a part of the political system as well, because here are decisions are taken. here are where people actually speak for the voice of the millions and millions of people who vote for them. So that's something which the Prime Minister is going to articulate, and he's receiving felicitations. He's been given their Ma Amba portrait that we just saw, and Ma Amba is somebody. Is something that Prime Minister really takes a lot of consideration in. In fact, Prime Minister observed both the Navaratras, observed all 9 days, Shivani. I think just has probably a glass of water or something of that sort, and just probably one fruit in the day is what his team tells us. So it is of course a true sense of celebration that we see when he's in his home state, Gujarat.
Yes. Yes, Payal, you raised an interesting point about the importance of the women voters. Now, of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been one of those leaders in this era that has seen a lot of support primarily from women voters who continue to be a very bankable constituency for him. That's also because a lot of his schemes have actually benefited women first in India. Of course, the open defecation free India movement, the Swachh Bharat movement, under which crores of toilets were built, were primarily for women and child. Then, of course, there's been the Ujjwala scheme and more. So, he, of course, has had a constituency of women voters built over a period of time. Other leaders also had it, and now the sense that the woman voter is the key voter that can be moved from one party to another depending on how you cater to them is something we're witnessing by opposition parties too, and they're employing this strategy in many of the state elections we've seen recently, and of course going forward as well. So this is going to be a very key space to watch out for, how all parties woo the woman voter, the female voter. There is currently a big battle going on in election-bound states on the price of cylinder, what the central government is doing, what state governments can offer, etc. This is going to be an important aspect also to measure just where the popularity of some of the current leaders lies, because it's becoming fundamental to political parties to figure out how to get more and more of that female vote that they really need. So this event that the Prime Minister is at is the Nari Shakti Vandan Abhinandan. This is of course based on the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam that has now become an act. The Prime Minister has been already going across the country, and many of his messaging to the public talking about how the BJP is the only party that had the will to do this. My colleague Aman Sharma is also joining us. Aman, of course, Gujarat is not a poll-bound state. The BJP only recently won a historic mandate in Gujarat. But at this event, celebrating Nari Shakti, what is the larger message for the country you expect from the Prime Minister today?
See, Shivani, the Prime Minister has been very aggressively projecting the passage of the Women's Reservation Bill. He saw that, him mentioning that even in his rallies in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan just yesterday, when he has projected this as a big achievement of the government, and whichever state the Prime Minister is going to visit, Women's Reservation Bill and its successful passage will be a major talking point for the Prime Minister. Obviously, the Prime Minister also indicating and highlighting that it is his government which has brought about this bill, despite it being talked about for almost 3 decades now, and the UPA and the Congress only gave lip service and did not get this bill passed and make it a reality. So we see the same happening in Gujarat also. The Prime Minister stressing on the woman, basically saying that the Nari Shakti is at the very center of the BJP's politics, and this is something that the BJP has invested in, empowering the woman, and it is reflected not just through its welfare schemes like Ujjwala or be it the Swachh Bharat or the toilet scheme, but also politically empowering the women in the days ahead with the Women's Reservation Bill.
Can I ask you, Aman, is the Women's Reservation Bill, which obviously is not going to be implemented before 2029, general elections, could be maybe a few state elections can have it before 2029, is it being seen as a vote catcher either by the BJP or by the opposition? Because I noticed the Congress is running a campaign of 20 press conferences in 20 cities led by their female leaders of talking about how the BJP bill is just a jumla because they're not implementing it straight away. So this seems like an issue that both sides will raise. Is it something that could actually be a vote catcher?
See, BJP strongly feels that it can be a vote catcher. That is why the BJP, the belief is that the BJP has also brought this ahead of the 2024 election to send a very, very strong message that it also appealing to the women voters that they will get more political participation. But on the other side, if we see the opposition, obviously the opposition is raising that if this is the case, why doesn't the BJP implement the bill immediately? Why doesn't the Congress press conference is about 2 topics. One, that why is the bill not being implemented immediately. The second topic is why are OBC women not being given the sub quota in the SC/ST reserved category in this bill. Obviously, the BJP has laid out its reasons for not implementing the bill immediately. A census and a delimitation exercise are needed, but both sides playing politics over it surely and trading the political points. The BJP saying its bill will come at its time, but it's been passed at least in a historic way in both houses of the parliament. It will be signed by the president soon, while the Congress questioning that if the BJP cares so much for women, why not bring the bill immediately, Shivani?
Absolutely. There's going to be a tussle on this, and I think both sides do feel that they can sway the sentiment of the female voters who will be taking part in subsequent state elections and even the general elections on the issue of the women's reservation bill. Although many experts would doubt the capacity and the attraction of the women's reservation bill on ground. It's not really one of those things which is a near tangible thing you get in your hands. For example, Aman, you've been tracking this yourself. What we're seeing right now in elections is a lot of what BJP calls ravery, what others call freebies, etc. So in that kind of a political atmosphere where people are looking at how to, what is it that the next government can immediately give to them extra, does something like a women's reservation that is anyways not being implemented right away become that big of a pull or an issue?
See, I think for the BJP, you are very correct in saying that this is not something which is happening immediately. So it is not that women are going to get reservation immediately. But the BJP, I think, making a larger political, a more moralistic point here that, okay, no government had the courage to pass this bill. Even the Congress had differences inside. Congress had differences with allies. At least the BJP has got the bill passed. That is, I think, the point that the BJP is trying to make here through these various events of that. And we saw the Prime Minister saying that yesterday as well, that, we have got this bill passed, but he warned the women voters in Madhya Pradesh that if the opposition gets a chance, it might roll back the bill. So, because the opposition has always been against it. Many opposition partners like the SP and the RJD have actually torn the bill on the floor of the House. So the PM also warning the voters, especially the women voters. He used the word कि मैं आप women voters को चेतावनी दे रहा हूँ. Yesterday said in the MP that be very wary that if the opposition gets a chance, it may even roll back the bill. It's the BJP which can only implement this bill, and that is why we brought it. Obviously, the political gains for it, we will only know once the state elections happen and the general elections happen, on if this benefited the BJP in any way. But the opposition sharpening its claws here and saying that the BJP has already brought this for political gains ahead of the 2024 general elections.
Yes, interesting point you made about the warning that the Prime Minister has also issued. Now, I know that there have been a lot of questions on why the women's reservation cannot be implemented by 2024 or ahead of 2024. And there are also some questions emerging if it can even be a reality by 2029. Remember, Congress leaders and some other commentators have raised this question that actually if you look at delimitation clauses, then the bill is going to be a reality. The implementation can only happen by 2039. So lots of questions. Mahesh Jethmalani, who's BJP's Rajya Sabha MP and senior lawyer, spoke to me about some of these intricacies about the women's reservation bill. Why not now, and will it even happen by 2029? So here's more of that conversation.
So Mahesh Jethmalani, first up, you mentioned in Parliament that there are 3 procedures that have to be completed before any new reservation comes into effect. Could you take us through why the reservation could not be implemented from 2024 onwards?
There are 3 steps in any reservation demarcation, right? The first is the census, right? If there's a impending census, right, you can do it on the basis of an existing census, right? But in view of the fact that we have a census starting in 2024, and really our territorial constituencies are frozen on the basis of a population of 1971, which is 55 crores, and we've already gone to 1.4 billion. Secondly, after census, Article 82 mandates that after every census, there will be a delimitation, and which means a readjustment of territorial constituencies. Stage number 3 is in case of special reservations, right? Reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, which already exist under Article 332. And you have now women's reservation, right? You then require what? An identification procedure. So there's census, which tells you population increase. There's a delimitation, which is territorial adjustments consequent upon that population increase. And third is identification for special purposes, like reservations for special classes, SCs, STs, women. Now, right? So these are the three things which you normally would expect. You can do it before 2024. You can get rid of the first two steps. You can say we will go by the 1971 census, but you still need the identification process.
Right.
Now, how are these processes identified? How are which seats will go for women? Only 1/3. You have to identify those 1/3, right? Now there's going to be a competition. Every sitting MP, every party is interested in saying, no, not this constituency, right? Who decides that? That's the job of the Election Commission. That's stage 3. Now, that stage can't be dispensed with because you have to an identification procedure. That procedure takes long. Why? Because the Election Commission, because it's a quasi-judicial function, right? You have to hear all the parties. You first set out proposals. You publish them. Then you publish a date when you will consider all counter proposals from stakeholders. You will call them. You will set a date. And then those people will come and be heard. Evidence can be led. This commission has the power for the determination of constituencies to see which is the most appropriate constituency. You wanted to do this third step, right? There'll be heartburn. That's what I said in Parliament. Supposing we take out Bayanan, right? Rahul Gandhi is going to complain. We take out some parliamentary constituency in West Bengal. The TMC is going to complain. Why this? They have to be heard. And there's a final procedure which after everybody's heard, you've done natural justice, right? There's finality to it. But the process of natural justice has to be gone through.
This is where the other question comes in, which is that your government has been in power for 9.5 years. Why did you think of this bill only now, which left you with no time to implement it before 2024?
I'll tell you that, right? And I made that statement in Parliament too. I answered that. I first said, why not 2014? Why not our first term? I said, what did you all do in your tenure of 10 years, UPA, for instance? Right? You did nothing. We did all the women's social justice, financial access, dignity issues. We had to first give them that. Political representation is a final step in empowering women. They had done zero. And I pointed out, were you not stirred by the shame of open defecation? What did they think? Did they even think about it? They had no sensitivity. That's what I kept telling them. So between 2014 to 2019, we first had to empower them socially and economically. And dignity. We gave them a sense of dignity.
Now, Mahesh Jaishankar, you're a lawyer as well. So I want to understand this from you. There are some members of the Congress party and independent commentators who have talked about the fact that actually Article 82, which was amended in 2001, brought in a clause by which the first census after 2026 is the one that will be the basis of a delimitation exercise. So according to them, delimitation cannot happen on the basis of 2026 census. It will have to wait till 2031 census. And by that time, it will be too late to even apply the women's reservation for even 2034. So they are contending that actually it will be implemented only by 2039. How do you respond to that? First of all, the issue of the Article 82 that they've brought.
Shivani, one of the people who've done this is Yogendra Yadav. With the greatest respect to him, he should stick to his strength of psephology, which also has not turned out to be pretty accurate, and stay away from law or take some legal advice. Look, 82's opening line says that it is mandatory. It's a condition that every time you have a census, right, you must have. That's the main part of 82 article, right? Every time you have a census, you must have a readjustment. But the article only says this, that it won't be necessary, right, to have a readjustment after every census, territorial readjustment after census, as the main part of the article prescribes, right, until 2026. It is permissive, not prohibitive. It doesn't say you can't do it. I mean, just now, when you had the northeastern states, right, you had a delimitation commission. When you had elections in the northeastern states, right? You had a delimitation commission And for Jammu and Kashmir, you had a delimitation commission, and these delimitation commissions, incidentally, have to be headed by a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, headed by Justice Rajana Desai. The delimitation which has been challenged in the Supreme Court, and not on this ground, by the way, 84, done by the delimitation commission of 2020. Now, if you couldn't have a delimitation commission at all, how did this 2020 commission come about? It is because that proviso which you are talking about says it is not necessary. You don't have to do it after. You don't have to mandate. It is not compulsory to do it after. But this time, in this situation, you are having a special reservation for women. So you have to do it. Necessary to do it. The word is, it is not necessary to have until the first census of 2026. Then it becomes mandatory again.
Okay.
Right now, it's
so it's a completely different reading of the article, in that sense.
With this respect, it's a poor and shallow reading of the article.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, it's motivated to put some little, eggshells in the path of what the Modi government has done. Let me assume that that's the right construction. They can remove that impediment anytime by a constitution when they're ready.
Right.
What's the big deal?
Right. So even that constitutional hurdle can be removed.
Of course, it can be overruled. Practical hurdles can't be removed of time.
So you are saying there is no such bar. Actually, the women's reservation can become a reality before 2029 general elections. In fact, in your speech in Parliament, you said that by 2026 state elections, it can actually become a reality.
Yes. I mean, yes, it can be. And that's the part where I believe the Modi Sarkar can do it better than anybody else.
ये खुशी स्वाभाविक भी है. आपने जिस विश्वास के साथ अपने इस बेटे को, अपने इस भाई को दिल्ली भेजा, उस विश्वास को बढ़ाने वाला एक और काम आपके इस भाई ने दिल्ली में किया है. नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम, यानी विधानसभा से लेकर लोकसभा तक महिलाओं को प्रतिनिधित्व मिले, प्रतिनिधित्व बढ़े, ये मोदी की गारंटी. ये सपना वर्षों पहले गुजरात की धरती से हमने मिलकर के देखा था. आज उस संकल्प की सिद्धि के साथ मैं आपके बीच आया हूं. खासकर मैं गुजरात की मेरी बहनों से कहना चाहता हूं, हमेशा की तरह इस बार भी आपने रक्षाबंधन पर मुझे ढेर सारी राखियां भेजी थी और हमारे यहां जब राखी मिलती है तो भाई की तरफ से गिफ्ट देने का भी रिवाज है. मैंने इस बार गिफ्ट पहले ही तैयार कर ली थी, लेकिन उस समय बता तो सकता नहीं था. आज मैं ये कह सकता हूं कि नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम पूरे देश की मेरी माताओं बहनों के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा उपहार है. नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम मेरी बहनों के अधिकारों की गारंटी है. नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम मेरी बहनों के सपनों के पूरा होने की गारंटी है. नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम देश की नारी शक्ति के सामर्थ्य का सम्मान है. और ये नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम भारत के विकास की विकसित भारत की भी गारंटी है। क्योंकि जब महिलाएं बड़ी संख्या में नेतृत्व के लिए आगे आएगी तो देश को आगे जाने से कोई रोक सकता नहीं है। मैं आप सभी को नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम पास होने की बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। बहनों, बेटियों, आप सब जानती हैं कि आजादी के इतने दशक तक नारी शक्ति के सामर्थ्य के साथ इंसाफ नहीं हुआ। अब आप मुझे बताइए, किसी के एक हाथ एक पैर को बांध कर रखा जाए तो उससे आप कितनी उम्मीद कर सकते हैं? देश की आधी आबादी की पूरी भागीदारी के बिना देश तेज विकास नहीं कर सकता है। हमने देखा है कि महिला अधिकार की बात पर या तो पहले सियासी बहाने बनाए जाते थे या ये कहा जाता था कि महिलाएं सारे काम नहीं कर सकती। हमने गुजरात से